Hello there, how are you all today? I'm pretty good because today I am ranking my highlighters. I had a really good time ranking my blushes 2, maybe 3 weeks ago by the time that this is actually posted, and I thought that I would move on to highlighters. I actually have quite a few. Let me count. 4, 5, 6, 8, 10, 12 to get through, which I don't know how that happened. Much like my blush video, I'm going to be ranking both everything that the manufacturer says is a highlighter, as well as any products that I use as a highlighter. So for example, I have these baked blushes from Wet n Wild. For me, these are a little too glowy to wear just as a blush. I tend to use them more as a highlighter. In fact, this is what I have right on my cheekbone today. So they're going to be included in this video. So I think I've been talking for like a minute and a half already, and this video really needs no introduction. We're going to work from lowest to highest, or worst to best, so let's get into it. We're gonna start with a highlighter from Wet n Wild. This is actually from their Mega Glow highlighting palette. I've just put it into an eyeshadow pan because it's not a highlighter on me. It is much too deep for me to function as a highlighter. I have tried mixing this with the lightest shade in that palette. It just doesn't work out for me, but it is a very pretty shade. It performs really well, and I am glad that I am able to use it as an eyeshadow. But because this is about how it performs as a highlighter, it's at the very bottom. Next up, this is such a shame because I really like this shade. This is a mixture of a couple of different shades from my Wet n Wild Petalette quad. I had to repress them because that palette was self-destructing. It's so pretty. I mean, look at that soft pink sheen. I just never use it. I repressed this, I think 3 weeks ago, and I talked about doing it for months. I'd been thinking about doing that for a year or maybe more, but once I actually did it, I just have not reached for it at all, and it's such a shame. I need to make a point of using this more. It's so pretty and so light and just, I think, very easy to wear, but goodness knows I haven't been reaching for it. Next up, we're going to move to my Physicians Formula All-Star palette, and this shade, which is the Powder Palette Mineral Glow Pearls. Let me give you a swatch of that. It's sort of a beige highlight. Now, all of these are pretty. I think I need to just preface this section especially by pointing out everything in this video is quite pretty. And I do use everything that is appearing in this video, with the exception of the pink, which we just talked about. This is just disappointing. When I bought this and when I was looking at it online, this had a silvery overspray on it, and it looked gorgeous. Now, was the overspray actually pretty on the cheeks? No, it was really chunky silver glitter, and I had so much texture going on. But I wish that if they were going to do an overspray, they at least kept it the same color as the actual product underneath, because this is a beige, which is fine. It's quite pretty, but it's not what I thought I was getting. I do like this color though. It is still a little bit on the chunky side. I feel like this definitely emphasizes the texture that I have. I do have quite a bit of texture, especially right around here. So that's not perfect, but I still make use of it. I still wear it. And overall, I do really like the effect that it gives. Next up, we have the Essence Pure Nude Highlighter. I feel like this is an absolute classic in the beauty community. It's again sort of a beige with a bit more gold in it. It is a little bit more yellow than the last highlighter we saw. This one is intended as a very natural highlight, and that's what I wanted this to be. On me, this is just a little bit too dark for most of the year. I can get away with this as intended in summer. I can use it by itself on my cheekbones in summer. However, in the fall, winter, spring, it's just a little too dark to use by itself. And it does make a pretty mixer. I will mix it in with my blushes, with bronzers, just to add a little bit of glow to them. And for that, it is very pretty. It's just disappointing to me that this isn't a hair lighter so that I can use it for more of the year. It's such a pretty shade and I want to be able to get good use out of it, but I just can't for most of the year. Next up, we have another shade that is very pretty. I just can't use it by itself a good chunk of the time, and that is this gold, which is also from the Wet n Wild Make It Glow highlighting palette. It actually gives me shade names. This is called Golden Flower Crown, and this shade was Gilded Hibiscus. I guess that these are all existing shades in their range, which is very cool. But here is what this shade looks like. It's actually pretty similar to the Essence one. I think this is just a little bit more on the golden side, and same issue. I can't get away with this by itself most of the time. However, this has the excellent perk of being in a palette, so I can quite easily mix it with either the pink or especially the white. That's probably the one that I reach for more often. And when I mix it with either of those, it's a lot easier for me to wear year round. I really like everything that we're going to talk about from this point on. Just, of course, some things are my absolute favorites and some things just rank a little bit lower, even if I still really like them and would want to replace them if they disappeared. So next up, we have one of the Wet n Wild Baked Blushes. This is in the shade Hummingbird Hype. It is a very glowy peach. I actually think that I swatched this earlier, or at least showed it to you guys earlier. But here is what this looks like. Is this a little too dark? Yeah, probably. But I do like how it's actually showing up as peach on me. And I like that bit of golden orange sheen that it's giving. I find shades like this that are colors that I would wear as blush a lot easier to wear as highlight because yes, they're still probably a little too dark for me to use as a proper highlight, but it just feels like a continuation of my blush. It feels like it's building on top of it, and I like that effect. I also like that it has a little hummingbird on it. That is one of the major selling points to me, really. Next, we're going to move to the last golden highlighter that we have to talk about. This is, again, from Physicians Formula. This is their Rose All Day Petal Glow highlighter. Let's swatch that. I just like how pure of a gold this is. This is more golden than anything else I've swatched so far. And again, I can't wear it by itself as a highlighter. That's fine. I use it to mix in with blushes, and I will use it as an eyeshadow sometimes. And I will mix it in with other highlighters, specifically just because they're next to each other. I will often put a mixture of these two on the high points of my face, and I think it looks really nice. It's really nicely performing, just gold highlighters. As you can probably tell from the fact that they're all ending up on arm number 1, aren't really my favorite. I am much more of a pink or icy highlighter kind of girl. I just said I was done with golden highlighters, but I think you could somewhat reasonably categorize this as a golden highlight as well. This is the lid shade from my, or no, it's the highlight brow, I don't remember what it was labeled, shade from my Wet n Wild Silent Treatment Quad. Here is what that looks like. This for me is a super subtle, so subtle highlight. I will use this on my cheeks. I'll use this, it's actually a little too dark to use on my brow bone, but I'll use it on the inner corner. I'll use it as eyeshadow because, well, it is an eyeshadow. And I feel like it gives just the tiniest bit of lift to my face without being super noticeable. This can catch the light in a nice way, but it's never blinding by any means. It's always super subtle, super everyday, and it actually looks, I think, pretty natural on me. So here's what that looks like. And again, yeah, it's probably a little bit dark, but I really like the way it looks, and I think that it's actually pretty flattering. Let's move back to that Wet n Wild palette, and we're going to take a look at this pink shade, which is Blossom Glow. I mean, I really like this shade. I also am swatching on entirely the wrong finger. There. Yeah, I think you can tell that those pinks just look a lot more natural and easy to wear on me than golds do. I think this shade is super pretty. It's very wearable. It's very easy. I like how it builds on my blushes, and I think that it's just an easy, pretty, everyday shade. And I think you can tell it catches the light really nicely, which is, of course, super important for a highlighter. At this point, we're just working through my pink highlighters. The next one we're going to talk about is the other Hummingbird highlighter. This is Don't Flutter Yourself from that same line. Again, we've got the bird, always a perk. But let me give you a swatch of this. This one is quite a bit more impactful than the last one. It's much more pink. I feel like it's not catching the light right. There it is. You can see that. This is difficult for me to wear as, I feel like it's not really catching the light very well. There it is, you can see it. This makes a nice lid shade for me. It's not something that I would ever want to use on my brow bone. It's just too pink for that. It makes a nice blush topper. That's usually how I end up using this. It's just pretty. I really enjoy this shade, and I think that it's super flattering on me. I think I'm going to start sounding like a broken record right around here. The last pink blush we have to talk about is Tickle. This is from Benefit. I only have it in a mini in the Cheek Leaders palette, but this is gorgeous. This is swatch. It's such an interesting shade. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get it to show up, but it is this soft pink, but it has this golden flip to it, this sort of a golden iridescence. I think you can see that. Yeah, it's just so interesting. It's so pretty. I like wearing this really built up on the lid. I feel like you really see that pink gold shift in it then. It gives an interesting effect on the cheek. It's definitely one of my more blinding highlighters, and it does emphasize a little bit of texture, but not terribly, and I think that it is totally worth seeing a little bit of extra texture for the super shiny, super pretty effect that it gives. And then finally, you might have been able to guess that this was going to be number one, since it's the only one that has pan in it. But this is, again, from that Wet n Wild Mega Glow Highlighting Palette. This is the shade White Lily, and it is white base, which I think makes it so wearable, so good for my skin tone. It actually serves as a true highlight. It's actually lighter than my skin, which it's kind of the only one that I have that fits that description. Well, Maybe one or two others do, but here is that. Isn't that beautiful? It's white, but it has a pretty purple iridescence to it, and I think it's just gorgeous. This is absolutely my most used highlighter. I mean, I think you can tell I have gone in on this highlighter. I actually haven't even owned it for that long. I think I've only owned this maybe 6 months or so, but it's beautiful. I use it all the time. I have to kind of stop myself from using this every day and reach into other highlighters. I have mixed this highlighter with pretty much all the other shades that you see on my arm today, with the exception of the Peachy Hummingbird one, with the exception of this one, to lighten them up, to make them function better as proper highlighters rather than just a blush topper. It's such a good shade for me. It's such a useful tool for me to have in my collection. And I think that if I were to buy another highlighter anytime soon, I would probably look to see what other white-based highlighters Wet n Wild has. I think they have one that's a little bit blue and one that's a little bit green. I think that those would be useful additions for me. All right, so that is my highlighter collection and my ranking of them. What do you think of my ranking? Is it as funny to you that just all of the gold ended up on this arm and pretty much all the pink ended up on this arm? I mean, I think you can tell why that happened though. I mean, just look at how much these stand out on my skin versus the lighter ones. These are just better shades for me, and I think it makes sense that they all ended up in the top. If you have any of these products, I would love to hear your thoughts on them. Otherwise, I think that is the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed and that you'll consider liking and subscribing if you did. I really hope that I will see you next time. Bye.